The first time Daniel met his alien landlady, she didn't say hello. She just scanned him with her yellow eyes and grunted. "Keep your shoes off the wall, human." Daniel nodded, confused, holding a small bag and his rent papers. The housing pod was small, round, and smelled like melted plastic, but it was cheap, and that was all he could afford. After the war between Earth and the Karenni Empire, he was just another human refugee. No job, no family. Just a tired body and a strange new world around him. The landlady's name was Zraka. She was tall, with thick red scales and 4 arms. Her voice always sounded like thunder wrapped in sarcasm. And she hated noise, cooking smells, and anything that wasn't folded perfectly. Daniel moved into Unit 9A and tried to be invisible. He cleaned after himself, paid rent early, and avoided her stare. But the walls were thin, and aliens whispered loudly, soon. Daniel heard a strange rumor floating around the building. "Did you hear?" said one blue-skinned neighbor. "The human has a worm." "Not a worm," corrected another, "a Shai-Hulud, a holy creature." Daniel didn't know what that meant. He just wanted to survive until next month. But the whispers didn't stop. Aliens stared at him in the hallway, blinked 3 eyes, then looked down at his pants. He felt like a walking secret, and he didn't like it. One night, everything changed. Zraka barged into his room without knocking. The door slammed open, and she stood in the frame like a monster. In a horror movie, "Where is it?" "Oh," she growled. Daniel sat up, wearing only a loose shirt and shorts. "Excuse me?" he asked, still half asleep. Her eyes locked onto his lap, and she gasped, stepping back in shock. "What? What is that between your legs?" she shouted. Daniel looked down, embarrassed. "It's just normal, I guess." "No, no, no," she roared. "That looks exactly like the legendary beast. The mini Shai-Hulud." "The what?" "The holy desert worm of Karenni legends. It lives under sand, silent and powerful." She stared at him, sweating now. "Why does yours look like one?" Daniel's mouth opened, then closed. He didn't know how to explain human biology to a 4-armed alien in a panic. Within minutes, the hallway outside was filled with noise. Other alien tenants poked their heads out. "What's happening?" "Is the human dangerous? I heard he has a beast in his pants." Daniel covered himself with a blanket, horrified. "This is private," he shouted. But it was too late. Zraka pointed at him with all 4 fingers. "You are not just a tenant," she said. "You are a mystery to be solved." "I'm just a guy who wants to sleep," Daniel said. Exhausted, she narrowed her eyes. "You will come with me to the local temple." "What?" "No. I'm not going anywhere." But she was already on her communicator. Calling someone, within 10 minutes, 2 armored aliens arrived. Wearing priest robes and glowing masks, "The council must see this," said one of them. Daniel held on to the doorframe. "See what? I'm just a normal guy." "You are not normal," the priest replied. "You carry the symbol of the old ones between your legs. I carry what?" Before he could protest more, he was grabbed by the 2 arms, each hand carried out of his own room. A small alien child pointed and shouted, "It's the Shai-Hulud boy." He groaned, covering his face with both hands. They loaded him into a long, gold-plated hover vehicle. Inside was silent, except for soft humming. Zraka sat beside him, arms crossed. She looked at him, then muttered, "You have no idea what this means, do you?" "Nope," Daniel said, "but I really need pants." She didn't laugh, but her mouth twitched just a little. The city lights passed by outside, neon green and purple flashes painting Daniel's confused face. He thought about home, about Earth, about how this was not what they promised when they said intergalactic peace. Finally, the vehicle stopped in front of a towering building. Carved into its front was a massive creature, a worm-like beast with curling horns. It looked exactly like the mini Shai-Hulud Zrak had described. Daniel stared at it, then looked down at himself. "Oh, come on," he whispered. A dozen priests waited at the stairs. Bowing low, Sraka stepped out first, then turned back to him. "Walk tall, human," she said. "Your worm has awakened an ancient world," and Daniel could only sigh. He stepped out into the lights, into history, and into a whole new kind of trouble. Daniel stood in front of the temple, blinking under bright alien lights. Priests in flowing white robes and glowing faceplates waited for him in silence. They didn't speak right away, they just looked at him. Or more specifically, at his lower half. Sraka nudged him from behind. "Go," she said. "They will not harm you." "I'm not worried about harm," Daniel whispered. "I'm worried they'll ask to see it again." Sraka didn't respond, but her scales darkened, like she was hiding amusement inside the temple. The air smelled like dust and flowers. The ceiling stretched high, with carvings of great desert beasts across the walls. The priests led him down a hallway lit with blue fire. At the end, a golden chamber opened wide. There stood the High Seer, her robes dragging across the floor like mist. She had 6 eyes and 2 voices, one low, one soft. She said, "You carry the mark of the old ones. I carry pants," Daniel replied, in confusion. She didn't blink. "Show us the creature," she said calmly. Daniel looked around, nervous. "Are we really doing this again?" Sraka gave him a nod, then turned around to give him privacy. With a deep sigh, Daniel dropped his pants just a little, just enough. The High Seer gasped, fell to her knees, and whispered in a strange language. One of the younger priests fainted. Another started singing a hymn. Daniel yanked his pants back up, red-faced. "Can someone explain what's going on before someone builds me a shrine?" he asked. The High Seer stood slowly, eyes still wide. "There is an old prophecy," she said, "that one day the spirit of the mini Shai-Hulad would return in flesh, to lead the galaxy through darkness." "Okay," Daniel said carefully. "And what does that have to do with my biology?" "You match the sacred carving perfectly," a priest said, holding up an ancient tablet. Daniel looked. The creature carved there looked like a giant desert worm with spiral ridges and a wide mouth. It did look weirdly similar. "Seriously?" he asked. "That could be a drawing of a garden hose, but it is not," the seer said. "It is you." Before he could argue, 2 priests stepped forward and placed a heavy necklace around his neck. It glowed softly, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. "You are the living symbol," she whispered. "You must be presented to the queen." Daniel's stomach dropped. "The queen, a T," he repeated. "Can't I just go home?" "No," she said. "The galaxy must see its sign back outside." A golden transport ship waited. Sraka walked beside him, arms folded tightly. "This has gone far enough," Daniel muttered. "I'm just a normal human." She looked at him, quiet for a moment. "Maybe that's what makes it strange," she said. "You shouldn't match the image. But you do." He rubbed his eyes, tired. "I came here to rent a room, not fulfill an ancient prophecy." Sraka snorted. "Welcome to alien real estate." The transport ship lifted into the sky, smooth and silent, below them. Crowds had gathered, aliens waving banners, chanting, and holding signs that said things like "Welcome, Sacred Worm," and "Worm of Destiny." Daniel sank into his seat, groaning. "I'm never going to live this down." Sraka handed him a scarf. "You better cover yourself," she said, "or someone might try to worship you again." He tied it quickly. Cheeks burning red, the capital city came into view. Tall spires, wide hoverways, and golden towers gleamed under twin suns. The queen's palace was even larger than he imagined, like a mountain made of glass and gold. As the ship landed, guards with curved spears and glowing tattoos waited. A tall alien female stood in front of them, her presence cold and sharp. "Like a blade." "That's not the queen," Sraka whispered. "That's her sister." She stepped forward, eyes narrowing. "So, this is the one," she said, voice like broken ice. "The one who carries the sacred worm." Daniel gave a weak wave. "Hi," he said. "Can we not call it that?" She didn't smile. "You will be examined," she said, "by order of the crown, inside the palace." Things got weirder. The walls shimmered with illusions, alien art that moved when you blinked. They took Daniel to a private chamber and handed him robes. "Wear these," the attendant said. And be still, he did. Wondering how his life became this strange, a priest entered. Carrying a long golden rod with a spinning crystal at the tip. "Do not move," he said, and waved. It over Daniel's body, it hummed, glowed, then buzzed loudly when it reached his waist. The priest froze, then fell to his knees. "It is confirmed," he whispered. "The mark is not illusion, but truth." The chamber door opened again. This time, it was her, the queen. Tall, graceful. Wrapped in silks of every color, she entered the room without fear, looking directly at Daniel. Her voice was soft but commanding. "So, the prophecy is true." He tried to speak, but she raised a hand. "You may speak freely." He cleared his throat. "I'm just a guy," he said, "from Earth, from a broken colony. I just wanted a quiet room and working plumbing." The queen tilted her head, and instead, "You gave us a sign from the stars," she said, walking closer as she reached him. She leaned in too close. Her golden eyes studied him like a puzzle. "If you truly are the sign," she said softly, "then you must undergo the ancient test." "What kind of test?" Daniel asked, stepping back. "The kind," she said, "that decides if you are a gift or a warning." And the chamber. Doors closed with a soft hiss behind her. Daniel was still wearing royal robes when he decided to run. He didn't know where the doors led or what laws he was breaking. He just knew one thing: he didn't want to be tested like some alien lab rat. He sprinted down a hallway lined with floating lights and golden statues. Behind him, alarms echoed, and armored guards shouted in strange languages. He turned left, then right, his bare feet sliding on smooth crystal floors. Somewhere inside the palace, a voice shouted, "Do not harm him. The sacred worm must be preserved." "That name is really getting old," Daniel muttered, out of breath. He crashed into a pantry and hid behind a stack of glowing fruit. His chest rose and fell quickly, his heart pounding like a drum. He peeked through a crack in the door. More guards passed, their spears buzzing with energy. He swallowed hard. "Okay," he whispered. "Time to stop being the worm guy and start being smart." Just as he stepped out, someone grabbed his wrist and yanked him back. He almost punched the figure, but then he saw her, Sraka. The alien landlady was crouched in the shadows, her scales dull, her expression serious. "You idiot," she growled. "You were supposed to wait for me. I didn't know you were coming." He replied, still stunned. "I wasn't." She said, "But I figured you'd try to escape." She pulled him through a servant hallway, her 4 hands moving fast. "You shouldn't have run," she hissed. "Now they'll think you're a false prophet, or worse, an enemy do." "I look like a prophet." Daniel snapped, "I sell used power converters when I'm lucky." "That's the problem," Sraka said. "You look too normal, which makes your resemblance to the sacred creature even more terrifying." They reached a side gate, guarded by 2 robots with blinking eyes. Sraka pulled a wire from her robe and jabbed it into a panel. The gate opened with a soft hiss. "You know how to hack security doors?" Daniel asked. She didn't answer, but her eyes glinted. "Being a landlady doesn't pay well," she said. "You learned side jobs." They slipped out into the lower city, where glowing market stalls lit up the night. Aliens of all shapes moved through the crowds, but many wore hoods and avoided eye contact. Daniel followed Zraka down into an alleyway that smelled like oil and old noodles. "I have a safe house," she said. "An old tenant owed me favors." They reached a metal door hidden behind a stack of crates. Inside was a small, dusty room with 2 chairs and a flickering light. It wasn't much, but to Daniel, it felt like freedom. He dropped into a chair, finally breathing again. Zraka leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching him. "What now?" he asked. "You hide," she replied, "and I figure out how to fix this mess." Hours passed, and Daniel finally dozed off. But Zraka didn't sleep. She stood by the door, listening, alert. Even though she would never admit it, something inside her had changed. She had mocked him before, laughed at the worm thing, but now she saw the fear in his eyes, the exhaustion in his shoulders. He wasn't a god or a creature of legend. He was just human, and maybe that was enough to protect in the early hours of the morning. There was a knock, not loud, but slow, careful. Zraka's body tensed. She grabbed a metal pipe and motioned for Daniel to stay back. She opened the door just a crack. A small alien girl stood there, eyes wide and glowing. "They're coming," she whispered. "The ones who don't believe in the prophecy?" Then she ran, disappearing into the alley. Zraka cursed. Daniel looked at her, fear rising. "Again? What does that mean?" "It means we move," she said. Now, but before they could escape, the wall exploded. A group of masked aliens stormed in, weapons ready. "The false one dies tonight." Someone shouted. Zraka didn't wait. She launched forward, swinging the pipe with both upper arms and using her lower arms to block. Daniel ducked behind the couch as energy blasts ripped through the walls. "Stay down," Zraka shouted. She fought like a wild storm, growling and dodging, her movements quick and brutal. She knocked out one attacker, then 2, but there were too many. Daniel peeked up and saw one aiming at her back. Without thinking, he threw a fruit bowl. It hit the alien square in the face. Zraka turned, knocked him out cold, and looked at Daniel with a strange smile. "Not bad," she said. More attackers came, but suddenly, sirens echoed outside. The temple guards had arrived, confused but alert. The attackers fled into the shadows, disappearing like smoke. Daniel slumped down, heart pounding. Zraka sat beside him, bruised but breathing. She looked at him and spoke softly. "I made a vow tonight," she said. Daniel blinked. "Ah, vow. You are not a god, Daniel," she said. "But you are alone in a world that thinks you are something else." "I don't care what they believe," he said. "I just want to go home." She nodded. "I will get you there," she whispered. "Or die trying." Daniel looked at her, really looked, for the first time. She didn't seem like just a scary landlady. She was his protector now, and the only one in the galaxy who believed in him, not the myth. Asterisk. Daniel never wanted to be famous, but now his face was everywhere, on floating banners, holographic billboards, alien breakfast boxes, and even candy wrappers. The moment the temple leaked a single image of Daniel's so-called sacred resemblance, the galaxy went wild. They didn't show his face, no. They showed something else, the golden glow of the ancient scan. His lower half turned into an icon of mystery and divine energy across 30 planets. They now called him the Vessel. Others just called him the guy with the worm. Zraka turned off the holoscreen with a loud growl. "We're hiding. And they're selling dolls of you," she snapped. Daniel sighed. Sitting on the floor of their new hideout, a cleaner one this time, inside a maintenance shaft of an old spaceport. "It's not even accurate," he mumbled, holding one of the toys in his hand. The tiny plastic figure had a tiny golden snake coming out of its robe. "I should sue." "You should shut up and stay low," Zraka replied, peeking through a vent. But low didn't work anymore. People were starting to believe in him. Some alien groups claimed he was the savior of their species. Others believed he was a test sent by the gods. A few were planning to worship him in ways that made Daniel deeply uncomfortable. And then there were the ones who didn't believe at all. Those were the dangerous ones, because they didn't want to study him or praise him. News reports said riots had started on the distant moon of Kelner. One group built a giant statue of Daniel holding lightning bolts. Another group tore it down, calling him the human trick. The High Temple denied leaking the image, but it didn't matter. The story was out. And someone wanted to make sure it ended fast. Late one evening, Zraka returned with bad news. "Bounty's been placed," she said, tossing down a flyer. Daniel picked it up, reading slowly. Wanted the human vessel dead or alive. Reward: 1,000,000 galactic tokens. Cool, he said. I'm officially worth more than my student debt. Zraka didn't laugh. This is serious, she said. We need to leave the planet. They planned to board a freight ship heading to the Outer Rim. But they needed help, someone with access codes. Zraka contacted an old friend, a famous alien biologist named Tholan. He agreed to meet in an abandoned train station near the lava fields. Daniel was nervous. I don't want to be poked with alien tools, he said. Relax, Zraka muttered. He only pokes plants. The station was dark, quiet, and smelled like burnt rock. Tholan arrived wearing a long silver coat and 2 pairs of goggles. He stared at Daniel for a long time, then said, "You are average. Thank you." Daniel replied, unsure. Tholan chuckled. "That's what makes it amazing. My friend, your anatomy is ordinary, yet perfectly matches the forbidden carving." Forbidden? Zraka asked. The carving was erased from temple records over a century ago, Tholan whispered. Some believed it was never meant to return. Daniel shifted nervously. So, are you going to help us escape? Tholan nodded. Yes, but I want a scan. Just one. No probes, just light. Daniel looked at Zraka, who raised an eyebrow. Your choice, she said. With a sigh, Daniel agreed. The scan lasted 5 seconds. But Tholan's eyes widened in shock. This isn't just resemblance, he muttered. There's human DNA mixed with something ancient. Before he could explain, an explosion rocked the station. Walls cracked, dust filled the air, and voices shouted from every direction. They found us. Zraka yelled, pulling Daniel behind a pillar. Dozens of masked aliens stormed in, holding plasma blades. This is the end, false prophet. One of them shouted. Tholan ran. Dropping his scanner, Zraka stood in front of Daniel. Ready to fight again? I said I'd protect you, she growled. Daniel looked around for anything to use. His eyes landed on a cargo lever labeled emergency door release. Without thinking, he ran and slammed it. The floor beneath the attackers dropped open, sucking them into the lava mist below. Screams echoed and then silence. Zraka grabbed his shoulder, panting. Next time, she said. Warn me before doing something smart. He gave a shaky smile. They escaped through the tunnels Tholan showed them. Reaching the outer district spaceport, Daniel was covered in sweat and soot. Zraka had a small cut on her arm, but she didn't slow down. They made it onto the freight ship just before takeoff, hiding inside a crate of fake fruit. As the engines roared and the planet faded behind them, Daniel looked at Zraka. I think I'm tired of running, he said. Good. She replied, because I think you need to face the Queen again. What? She's the only one who can clear your name. I don't have a name anymore, he muttered. Just titles like Vessel and Worm King. Zraka smirked. Then go get a new name. She said, one that's yours, as the stars stretched around them and the ship jumped into hyperspace. Daniel knew one thing. Fame was the last thing he ever wanted. But now that he had it, he had to decide what to do with it. Asterisk. The queen's throne room was nothing like Daniel expected. It wasn't gold or bright or filled with music. It was quiet, made of dark stone and humming crystals. The floor shimmered like water, but was solid as glass. Daniel walked slowly, each step echoing through the chamber. He felt very small. Soraka walked beside him, her eyes sharp. They had returned to the capital under disguise, hidden inside a diplomatic crate. The moment they arrived, a message came. The queen knows. You are here. The voice said, she will see you now. And so here he was, back in the lion's den. But this time, he wasn't being dragged. He came by choice. The queen appeared from behind a curtain of light. She wore no crown, just simple silks. But her presence filled the room like thunder without sound. Tall, graceful, and calm, she studied him with golden eyes that did not blink. Human, she said, you returned. I had to. Daniel replied, too many people want me dead, and too many others want me naked. Soraka coughed behind him, trying not to laugh. The queen's mouth curved slightly, a hint of amusement. So you chose the third option, she said. You came to me. Daniel nodded, trying to keep his voice steady. I don't want to be a symbol. He said, I don't want fame or temples or weird statues. I want the galaxy to stop chasing me. And why should I help you? The queen asked, stepping closer. Because I think you're the only one who knows what this really means. He paused, then added, and because I saved your capital from being burned down by angry cultists. The queen looked at Soraka. She speaks for you. Soraka stepped forward, her arms crossed. I protect him, she said simply. He may look like a joke, okay, but he's not. He's honest, brave, and completely unaware of how insane this galaxy is. Daniel raised a hand, still standing. Right here, he said. The queen waved him forward. Come, she said. Let me show you something. She led them through a secret corridor, lit with blue torches. The air smelled old, like forgotten stone and dry paper. They arrived at a chamber far below the palace. In the center stood a massive stone carving, a perfect replica of the mini Shai-Hulud. But this time, it wasn't a monster. It was shown curled around a child, protecting it. The queen touched the stone gently. This is the original image, she said. The one the temple erased. Daniel blinked. Why erase something peaceful? Because power likes fear, she said, not love. The temple wanted a god of strength, not kindness. She turned to face him. Fully, your resemblance is more than coincidence. Our historians believe there was once a species. Very close to humans, very old and very wise. They vanished. But not before leaving children among the stars. You think I'm part alien? Daniel asked, confused. Not just part, the queen replied. You may be the key. To reuniting forgotten bloodlines, he sat down on a stone bench, head spinning. So what now? He asked. The queen gave a strange smile. Now? You meet the creature. They led him to a quiet garden deep in the palace. In the center was a large sealed pod, surrounded by guards. Inside the pod, something moved. Soraka stepped back, suddenly uneasy. The pod opened with a hiss, revealing a small, coiled, glowing creature. It looked just like the carvings, tiny, elegant, and soft-skinned. It floated slightly above the platform. When it saw Daniel, it moved toward him. The guards raised weapons, but the queen raised her hand. Let it approach, she said. The creature stopped inches from Daniel's chest. Then, it purred. Everyone froze. The queen gasped quietly. It only does that to bloodkin, she whispered. Daniel slowly reached out, his hand shaking. The creature curled around his arm like a soft scarf, glowing warmly. It didn't bite. It didn't run. It dared. It didn't run. It trusted him. Soraka's mouth opened, but no words came out. Even she was stunned. The queen stepped forward, her voice suddenly formal. I offer you a place in my court, she said. Daniel shook his head. I don't want to be a symbol. He said again, but I do want answers. Then you'll stay, she replied, not as a god, but as a guest. Daniel agreed, but under one condition: no robes, no statues. And no one worships my underwear. Zraka finally laughed. Out loud, the queen raised a graceful eyebrow. I cannot promise the underwear part. She said, but I'll try, as the sun set over the twin moons. Daniel sat quietly in the garden. The glowing creature slept curled in his lap. Zraka sat beside him, her eyes scanning the stars. Do you think I'm part of something ancient? He asked softly. She nodded. I think you're part of something bigger than you know. But also? She smirked. Still the same awkward guy who forgot to zip up before meeting a queen. Daniel groaned and pulled his robe tighter. Don't remind me, asterisk, the next morning. Daniel was handed a robe made of silk and gold. He stared at it like it might bite him. Why does everything here sparkle? He muttered. Zraka stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Because you're about to face the test of legacy, she said. And they don't want you to look like a guy who eats noodles from a cup. Daniel sighed. I am that guy. Not anymore, she replied. They walked through a long crystal hallway, lined with guards holding staffs of light. At the end stood a massive stone door covered in glowing symbols. A tall priest greeted them, his robe black with silver stars. Are you prepared? He asked. No, Daniel replied, but I'm here. The priest nodded, and the door opened slowly. With a deep hum, inside was a round chamber filled with mist. Lights floated above them like fireflies. 7 alien elders stood in a circle, each from a different species. Some were tall and covered in fur, some short with glass-like skin, others floated without legs. In the center of the room was a smooth stone platform with a single chair. Sit, one of the elders said. Daniel walked forward slowly and sat, heart pounding in his chest. Why am I here? He asked. You are here, the lead elder said, to prove that you are not just a face on a carving. The galaxy does not need symbols. Another added, it needs heart, mind, and truth. We will test all three, a third said. Eyes glowing blue, Daniel looked towards Zraka, who stood at the edge of the room, silent but ready. He gave her a nervous thumbs up. She didn't smile, but she nodded once. The first test began. A hologram appeared before him, showing a village. Under attack, ships burned in the sky. People screamed. And an elder begged for help. You have one ship, the voice said. You can save the villagers or chase the enemy ship that caused the damage. Daniel paused, then said, save the villagers, even if it means the enemy escapes. Yes, he said. People first. The second test was harder. He was shown a poor alien child holding a stolen fruit. Behind her stood the angry vendor with a weapon. She is starving, the voice said. But stealing is punished by exile. What do you do? Daniel answered, I pay for her fruit and talk to the vendor, and if he refuses, then I give her food myself, Daniel said. Sometimes the law needs mercy. The elders said nothing, but one of them blinked slowly in approval. Then came the final test. They asked him to stand. A bright beam surrounded him, and suddenly, he saw visions, memories not his own. A war, a storm of sand. Voices in a language he didn't understand. He stood on a mountain, watching stars fall. He saw a hand reaching toward him, his own, but older and different. He fell to his knees, gasping. The beam stopped. He looked up, sweat on his face. What was that? The memory of the Shai-Hulot, the lead elder said. You are connected by blood. Even if you don't understand it, do you still wish to return to Earth? Daniel stood slowly. I don't know where I belong, he said honestly. But I know I don't want to run anymore. There was silence. Then the eldest of the council spoke. You passed, she said simply, not because of your appearance. Another added, But because of your heart, Daniel felt weak with relief. Zraka stepped forward and caught his arm. "I knew you'd do it," she whispered. "You didn't look so sure earlier," he replied. She smirked. "Well, I also thought you might fall off the chair." The queen appeared from the shadows, wearing a deep blue robe. "Your test is over," she said. "But your journey isn't, I figured," Daniel said. "What now?" "You will speak to the people," she said, "not as a god, but as yourself." That evening, a great crowd gathered outside the palace. Aliens of all shapes and colors stood together, curious and waiting. Daniel stepped onto the balcony beside the queen and Zraka. He looked at the sea of glowing eyes and nervous faces. He cleared his throat. "I'm not who you think I am," he began. "I'm not a god, not a prophet, and definitely not a worm king." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "I'm just a guy who came here looking for a room to rent," he said. "But somehow, I found something else. I found people who looked at me and saw something sacred. I didn't understand it, but now I think I do." He pointed to the sky. "You're all looking for meaning, for hope, for something better. Well, maybe we all are, and maybe we don't need a god to do that. Maybe we just need to start being good to each other, even if we're different." The crowd was quiet for a long moment. Then someone clapped, then more, then it became thunder. Daniel stood still, stunned, as voices cheered not for the sacred worm, but for the man who chose to speak like a friend, not a god. Zraka stood beside him, arms folded, proud. "You did it," she whispered. "I think I'm still wearing this robe backwards." Daniel whispered back. She laughed. The queen watched with a knowing smile, and in the skies above, the stars seemed a little closer. The palace was quiet the next morning, but the streets outside were not. People sang, chanted, and celebrated. Not for a war won, not for a royal wedding, but for a human. A very confused, very tired, very honest human. Daniel stared out the window, rubbing his eyes. "They're still out there." He asked. Zraka nodded, sipping her tea. "You're officially a symbol now," she said. Just not the kind they expected. He turned around and looked at his robe, now folded neatly on the chair. "I still don't get it," he said. "How did all this start from one awkward question in a hallway?" Zraka gave him a look. "Because you're not like them," she said. "And they needed someone who wasn't." She stood and stretched her forearms. "The queen wants to see you before you leave." Daniel blinked. "Leave?" "Yes," Zraka replied. "You've been cleared, and the bounty's gone." She gave the order this morning. He felt a strange tightness in his chest. He could leave. He could go back to Earth, at least what was left of it. No more temples, no more tests, no more glowing worms hugging his arm. Freedom, finally. Then why didn't he feel excited? The throne room was calm when he entered. The queen stood by a large star map, her fingers tracing the edge of a system far from here. She looked up when he approached. "So," she said softly, "the galaxy knows your name now." Daniel shrugged. "I was hoping for quiet. You brought change instead," she replied. "That's much louder." He stood beside her, watching the map spin slowly. "I wanted to go home," he said. "You still can." The queen answered, "No one will stop you. But," she added, "there is another option." Daniel looked at her, surprised. "What option?" "Stay," she said. "Not as a god, not as a legend, but as a voice of reason, a bridge between people. You've done something no priest or scholar has managed in decades. You reminded them how to listen." Daniel didn't speak right away. He thought of earth-broken cities, empty jobs, cold nights. Then he thought of Zraka, of the glowing creature that trusted him. He thought of the laughter on the street and the people who cheered for him, not his title. He took a deep breath. "What would I be if I stayed?" The queen smiled. anything you want that night. He made his decision. The next day, a new message was broadcast across the system. The vessel has chosen not to return to the stars, it said. He remains among us not as a holy figure, but as one of us. Some were confused, some were angry, but most smiled because for the first time in a long time, they believed in something real. Not ancient symbols, not glowing carvings, just a man who had no reason to care and cared anyway. Daniel moved into a modest home not far from the palace, Sraka. Moved in with him to make sure you don't burn toast, she claimed, but secretly. She just didn't want to leave him alone. They shared meals, stories, and late-night arguments over what counted as food in each culture. He began speaking in public halls. Not giving speeches, just answering questions aliens asked him. About Earth, about humans, about feelings, pain, love, and everything in between. He told the truth, always, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. The little worm creature, now named Milieu, never left his side. It floated behind him like a shadow, glowing softly when he was calm. Children adored it, even some skeptics. Began visiting just to see Milieu curl around Daniel's arm and purr. No one could deny it anymore. He wasn't just a man. He was a reminder that connection was still possible across galaxies. That peace didn't have to come from power, but from presence. One day, Sraka asked him quietly, "Do you ever miss your old life?" Daniel thought for a moment, then shook his head. "I didn't live back then," he said. "I just existed. This place made me alive," she nodded, hiding a smile. "You're still messy," she said, and loud. "But you've done more in a few weeks than most do in a lifetime." He grinned, "Coming from you. I'll take that as love. Don't push it," she replied, rolling all four eyes. Years passed. Daniel never returned to Earth, but Earth came to him, humans who had heard the story, who wanted to understand what he built. They saw a city of peace, a queen who listened, and a man who once just wanted to pay rent on time. He welcomed them all with open arms and the same old voice. Simple, honest, human, and across the stars, stories were told. Of the man with the sacred worm, the human who didn't run from legends but changed them. Not by power, but by kindness. Not by fighting, but by staying. And in a quiet garden under the twin moons, Daniel sat with Sraka and Milieu beside him. He looked up at the sky and whispered, "Maybe I didn't find home. Maybe I became it."